Thank you for your service to the nation, and please convey our thanks to the men and women serving under your commands. This is a critical time for our forces in the Indo-Pacific. China's ambition in the region continues to grow, as does its aggressive behavior. Chinese leadership seeks greater power and influence around the world, and it is leveraging a wide range of military, economic, and political pressures against its neighbors to advance these goals. As our defense leaders have made clear, the United States does not seek conflict with China, and strategic competition is not an inevitable march to conflict. America has long been a Pacific nation, and we have deep economic and security interests in the region. During today's hearing, I look forward to discussing how our forces can continue to improve our military posture and capabilities, while also supporting whole-of-government efforts to compete effectively in the region. To that end, the Defense Department recently released its joint concept for competing, which makes clear the objective of China and our adversaries is to, in their words, win without fighting. The concept warns that if we do not adapt to the realities of long-term competition, the United States risks ceding strategic influence, advantage, and leverage while preparing for war that never occurs. I am interested to hear from our witnesses how they plan to utilize the joint capabilities in the Indo-Pacific and Korea to address these challenges. Recognizing the challenges in the Indo-Pacific, President Biden has requested a considerable funding increase for Indo-Pacom in the fiscal year 2024 budget. This includes $9.1 billion for the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, or PDI, to strengthen the posture, infrastructure, and capabilities of our forces. In addition, this PDI investment will help build the capabilities of our allies and partners through military-to-military training exercises, freedom of navigation operations, and infrastructure improvements. The PDI request is a subset of broader department-wide investments to modernize and equip the force, much of which is focused on China as the department's pacing challenge. Our comparative advantage over China remains our network of allies and partners in the region and globally. I'm encouraged by the progress we've made through AUKUS, our military partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom, which is serving as an important test case for potential future partnerships. The maturation of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or QUAD, involving the United States, Japan, India, and Australia, also presents a valuable framework. Further, we have recently seen momentum in a number of other relationships throughout the region, including our new basing agreement with the Philippines, historic cooperation announcements between South Korea and Japan, and a remarkable transformation in Japan's new defense strategy. It is my hope that these developments will provide more opportunities to engage other regional powers. However, the most dangerous flashpoint that could turn our competition with China into a conflict remains Taiwan. In the past several years, we have seen a surge of aggressive Chinese military exercises around Taiwan's airspace and territorial waters, as well as an escalation in combative language from Beijing. The world has a right to be concerned. To help Taiwan develop its own defense capabilities, consistent with the Taiwan Relations Act, the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act included a package of security assistance tools ranging from foreign military financing to presidential drawdown authority. I understand Indo-Pacom is continuing to help Taiwan develop its training and warfighting concepts, and I expect Congress will continue to support this effort. Admiral Aquilino, faced with these wide-ranging challenges, I would like to know your assessment of Indo-Pacom's preparedness to carry out the United States strategy in the region. As we seek to more effectively compete with China, we must also manage the threat posed by North Korea. North Korea has conducted nearly 24 missile tests this year, including ICBMs and cruise missiles, and has reportedly stopped its routine military-to-military communication with South Korea. We also know that Kim Jong-un continues to view nuclear weapons as the ultimate deterrence against foreign intervention and intends to gain international acceptance as a nuclear-armed state. The goal of U.S. policy remains the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, but we are not taking an all-or-nothing approach. Instead, the Biden administration has pursued what it describes as the calibrated, practical approach to diplomacy with the North, with the goal of eliminating the threat to the United States. This approach will require smart and firm engagement with the North Koreans, but more importantly, it requires coordination with our allies and partners in the region, particularly South Korea and Japan. General LaCamera, I would ask for your views on the partnership between the U.S., Japan, South Korea, and other regional partners in addressing North Korea's destabilizing activity. I would also like to know how your forces are maintaining readiness through training and exercises with their South Korean counterparts. I want to again thank the witnesses and look forward to your testimony. Let me now recognize the ranking member, Senator Wicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank both of our witnesses for being here today. The Department of Defense's most pressing task remains ensuring deterrence of conflict in the Indo-Pacific. Failure to prevent aggression there would have enormous consequences. But we have already seen deterrence fail in Europe. We did not deter Putin from invading Ukraine, and not doing so has cost the global economy over $1 trillion thus far, brought untold suffering to the Ukrainian people, and heightened the threats under which our European allies live. Our intelligence community predicts that a deterrence failure in the Indo-Pacific would be much, much worse. We are entering a particularly dangerous period. Xi Jinping is the most powerful and ruthless leader in China since Chairman Mao. We know Xi has aggressive intent. He is rapidly increasing China's military capability. His ally, Kim Jong-un, has also improved North Korea's capabilities to threaten the continental United States and our allies. The North Korean dictator has already provided significant weaponry to Russia's failing fight in Ukraine. We also know that Xi and Putin have signed up to a so-called no-limits partnership. We have a lot of work to do. The FY24 budget request before us is the last one in which significant programs and activities could be funded and fielded in time for 2027, the year by which Xi has told the Chinese military to be prepared to take Taiwan. That is less than 4 short years away. Although a portion of the Pentagon is operating on a wartime tempo when it comes to supporting Ukraine, I cannot say the same for their focus on China. Because this committee felt that our defense strategy was not being implemented fast enough, the Pacific Deterrence Initiative was created and requires the Indo-Pacific Combatant Commander to provide an independent assessment of resources required to meet the challenge in that region. This initiative has allowed us to start moving our policies and investments in the right direction, but this forward motion has come in fits and starts. For example, last year, Congress authorized and appropriated an additional $100 million for planning and design activities in the Western Pacific. These funds were meant to expand our basing and logistics footprint in places such as Yap in Micronesia, Tinian in the Marianas Islands and the Philippines, and elsewhere. Once again, these initiatives are not fully funded in this budget. At this pace, it would take 25 years to modernize our basing posture in the Western Pacific compared to what we did in 5 years in Europe through the European Deterrence Initiative. Similarly, low-cost and high-value investments for allies and partners remain unfunded. We still cannot effectively share communications and intelligence with allies and partners. These are just a few of the important enabling capabilities we need in the Indo-Pacific. We need much more. For instance, the Pentagon still seems unserious about building the Guam defense system in a timely fashion. There are key space, cyber, electronic warfare, and command and control technologies we must accelerate as well. This committee recognizes the seriousness of the competition. That's why the Congress led the bipartisan charge to increase the defense budget in last year's cycle with a set of investments tailored to our most significant operational challenges in the Indo-Pacific. I'm hopeful we can do so again this year. We really have to do so again this year. Allow me to repeat, the window during which this committee can authorize significant capability to deter China in the near term is closing. 2027 is a few short years away, if that is the accurate projection. And I'm not convinced we have treated that date with the adequate seriousness thus far. We will need to prioritize our defense investments more effectively here in Congress. So I thank our witnesses. You've got quite a job ahead of you, and we appreciate what you do and want to work with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Wicker. Admiral Aquilino, please.
Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the Indo-Pacific region with you here today. I deeply appreciate your continuous support to all of our service members, government civilians, and their families within the Indo-Pacific Command. It's my distinct honor and privilege to serve alongside these brave men and women who selflessly execute our deterrence mission and defense missions every day. Your support is instrumental in our ability to accomplish these missions, but there's more to do, and we must act with a greater sense of urgency. Every day, U.S. Indo-Pacom works tirelessly to prevent conflict, not provoke it. War in Indo-Pacom is not inevitable, and it's not imminent. However, this decade presents a period of increased risk, as illustrated by a variety of things. First, the illegal, illegitimate war by Russia in Ukraine. Second, the largest and fastest military buildup and malign behavior of the PRC, including their no-limits relationship and partnership with Russia. Third, the continuous missile provocations and nuclear rhetoric by the DPRK. And in this theater, the threat of violent extremism is also present. Our national defense strategy identifies the PRC as the most consequential strategic competitor to the United States and the only competitor capable of combining its economic, diplomatic, military, and technological capabilities to mount a sustained challenge to the rules-based international order. Seize the Initiative is Indo-Pacom's approach to execute the national defense strategy and accomplish our defense priorities. Defend the homeland, deter strategic attacks, deter aggression, and build a resilient joint force. By design, this approach prevents conflict through integrated deterrence. It ensures we can fight and win should deterrence fail. And it provides the Secretary of Defense and the President with options for any contingency. There are 4 pillars to our approach. First is a robust theater posture. Second, a joint operations campaign comprised of lethal, persistent forces forward. Third, technologically superior capabilities to maintain our warfighting advantages in the near, mid, and long term. And fourth, an enhanced network of allies and partners, that which any of our challengers do not have. We respectfully request your continued support for these 4 focus areas and recognize that any delay in one area directly affects all the others and puts the overall success of our deterrence efforts at risk. Again, conflict in the Indo-Pacific region is not inevitable, but we cannot rest on our past accomplishments to secure a future peace. Security challenges threaten our very way of life, as well as the peace, prosperity, and stability of the rules-based international order that has enabled that peace for over 80 years. The investments we make today will allow future generations to enjoy the same legacy of liberty our ancestors entrusted to us. But we don't have the luxury of time. We must act now to preserve this free and open Indo-Pacific. Chairman, Ranking Member Wicker, thanks again for the opportunity to appear today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Admiral Aquilino. General LaCamera, please.
Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, and the distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you as the Commander of United Nations Command, Combined Forces Command, and U.S. Forces Korea to discuss the current situation on the Korean Peninsula. Korea is as important today as it was in 1950 when the international rules-based order was first challenged and successfully defended on the Korean Peninsula. Located on the Asian continent, the Republic of Korea is crucial to regional and global stability. When North Korean Communist forces invaded South Korea with the blessing and assistance of the Soviet Union and China, the United States, along with the 22 members of the United Nations, stood together with the South Korean people to expel the aggressors. The Korean War taught us that we must always be ready and forward postured with our allies. To ensure continued peace and stability on the peninsula, I have 5 priorities that are nested within the Indo-Pacific Commander's Seize the Initiative approach to ensure free and open Indo-Pacific. My first priority is to defend the homelands, the United States and our allies. The Korean War has not ended. We are in an armistice, and the Kim regime has developed capabilities that can reach beyond Seoul, Tokyo, Washington, D.C., and the capitals of the United Nations command sending states. By defending forward in this strategic location, we better protect our people and the Korean people. Defending forward reinforces our ironclad commitment to the Republic of Korea. My second priority is to strengthen the United States and the Republic of Korea alliance. We must never take the alliance for granted. This is our center of gravity for deterring the Kim regime. The alliance has effectively deterred the Kim regime's resumption of large-scale aggression for almost 70 years, allowing security and stability to flourish and the Republic of Korea to develop into an economically prosperous, vibrant democracy. In contrast, the Kim regime ignores the needs and rights of the great majority of its population and continues to invest its resources in developing weapons that uses it as leverage. External leverage coerces concessions from the international community. Internal leverage maintains control of the people and ensures Kim regime survival. My third priority is to prepare for combat. This is decisive. Our alliance alone cannot deter aggression. Our power of resistance deters. Maintaining the highest state of combat readiness is our main effort. Because readiness is perishable, we must continue realistic training in order to respond to aggression and defend our homelands. My fourth priority is to build coalitions to dissuade aggression in the region. Our network of allies and partners with common interests on the Korean Peninsula represents our greatest asymmetric advantage. My fifth priority is to ensure our personnel are taken care of and prepared to execute our mission on the Korean Peninsula. Mission first, people always. Our people serving on the Asian continent have the extraordinary responsibility of providing security and stability throughout the Republic of Korea and Northeast Asia. Our focus remains taking care of the mental, physical, and spiritual needs of our service members, civilians, and families. Since 1953, the United States and the Republic of Korea remain ready to deter and respond to North Korean aggression. Our Mutual Defense Treaty expresses our common desire to live in peace with all people and governments. It also expresses our common determination to defend ourselves against external armed attacks so that no potential aggressor could be under the impression that the United States or the Republic of Korea stands alone in the Pacific area. While the United States and the Republic of Korea alliance began out of military necessity, it has evolved to become the linchpin of stability and prosperity in Northeast Asia. The soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardians, civilians, and contractors are proof of our ironclad commitment to the alliance and ensures that the authoritarian regimes of North Korea, China, and Russia cannot unmake the international rules-based order. Should the Kim regime resume hostilities with your continued support, we are ready. I'm proud to serve with them and honored to represent them before you. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. General LaCamera, your prepared testimony states that Kim Jong-un is determined to operationalize his nuclear arsenal and is developing a credible second strike capability. Your testimony also states that without outside influence, it is not a matter of if North Korea will detonate another nuclear device, but when. In this situation, do you see China in any way affecting their decision-making about the inevitability of another nuclear detonation? And then what is the effect of the North Koreans having a credible second strike?
Thanks, Chairman. I think China can play a spoiler in this. They can be supportive or they can be non-supportive in what he's doing. What we're seeing right now in any kind of UN sanctions votes in the United Nations, both China and Russia continue to veto that, and they continue to work against the things that we're trying to do to maintain peace and stability. And
with a second strike capability, I presume that would immensely complicate your...
Yes, sir. I mean, it's clear that he is, in the last year plus, he has demonstrated a whole bunch of different capabilities, all of which could lead to a second strike capability. I mean, he is clearly focusing on the theater ballistic missile capability, not just on the peninsula regionally, but globally.
Thank you. Admiral Aquilino, you have difficult steps to prioritize in terms of investments. And one area which seems critical is the electronic spectrum. I mean, to successfully conduct operations in the Pacific, ideally you could disrupt the communication of our enemies and also their ISR, and at the same time, in a complementary fashion, disguise our assets and also have constant secure communication. Is that, in your view, like the #1 priority?
Thanks, Chairman. So if you're talking about a prioritized list, the Guam Missile Defense System remains the Indo-Pacific's #1 priority. That's based on the Homeland Defense mission that's most critical. But immediately behind it, Senator, you talked about the capability to influence the electromagnetic spectrum. Absolutely. We view it through this lens of decision superiority, which means we need to be able to operate in contested space. We need persistent battle space awareness of all things going on, and we need to be able to close our kill chains with the weapons and the network that allows that to happen, and the electromagnetic spectrum is critical to that.
Are we putting enough resources in this budget to accelerate that process and accomplish that task?
So I'm very thankful for the department's budget. It's certainly strategy-based. It's certainly focused on the Indo-Pacific. That said, as you know, Chairman, I've provided an unfunded list as it applies. The Secretary's got global responsibilities, and as you've tasked in the authorization language, I'm responsible to provide you with a list of what Indo-Pacom assesses as the critical capabilities needed to both deter and defend, and we've provided both of those reports as directed by law to help inform. But it's certainly been identified, and my requirements have been fed into the department.
Thank you very much. A final point, Admiral Aquilino. You point out in your testimony, this is the first time in history the United States is facing 2 major nuclear powers. So a lot of the theory, a lot of the institutional arrangements that we've made reflect the Cold War, was a Russia, rather Soviet Union, U.S. confrontation. Just very quickly, how has this changed your thinking and the thinking of your colleagues in the Department of Defense?
Thanks again, Chairman. So certainly the no limits relationship by President Putin and President Xi is something we ought to be watching very, very closely. And what does that mean? My partner, General Cotton at Stratcom, is the lead for all the strategic nuclear portions. As it applies to Indo-Pacom, he's a great supporting partner. And that means we have to understand what does that look like as we manage escalation and deliver deterrence, both conventionally and in the strategic nuclear lens. I think what makes sense to me, and I know he would advocate for, and that's the modernization of our strategic nuclear triad as a priority threat to be able to compete in that new world.
Thank you very much. Senator Wicker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, let me just make sure I understand. With regard to the electromagnetic spectrum, that is highly important, right up there, bumping up against the Guam initiative. Is that right?
Yes, Senator. It's I would say it's in my #2 kind of pile of decision superiority behind the Guam defense.
Okay, and so in order for us to take care of that, we're going to have to fund some unfunded requirements. Is that correct?
Senator, for consideration, again, I provided the assets and the capabilities I think I need. There are certainly some capabilities I've asked for that provide benefit in the electromagnetic spectrum in order to execute our mission.
Is it highly important that we fund this? Vitally important?
Yes, sir, I believe it is.
Okay. Let me just ask both of you. There's some people who feel our support for Ukraine is taking away from our capability and credibility in the Indo-Pacific, particularly with regard to Taiwan. Admiral, you first, and then General, what do you say to that?
Senator, I do not. The United States is the only global force capable of managing multiple threats. My partner in EUCOM is executing his mission sets. I haven't been impacted at this point as it applies to my deterrence mission. So I do believe we can do both. I believe we have to do both to maintain the peace.
We have to do both. Oh, okay. General, what would Ukrainian success in this war say to the world about the situation in the Indo-Pacific?
For us, we're taking what's going on in Ukraine and, lessons learned, boiling it down. It doesn't necessarily translate to what a fight on the peninsula would look like. I think the support that's being provided, the lessons learned coming off of that, I think it reinforces how we feel about sovereignty in a country's right to choose their future.
Okay, well, let me then ask you to enlarge on that. What is it to us, what happens in Taiwan and South Korea? You spoke about an international rules-based order, and sometimes I'm troubled that that terminology doesn't get through to the American people. What is it to us living in Virginia and Maryland and Mississippi and Nebraska and Arkansas, that the forces of Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un not succeed in that area?
I think it's a history lesson for the American people. I mean, the blood and treasure that we put forth in World War II and the international rules-based order that we established right after that was challenged in 1950. It's been bookended by what's being challenged in Ukraine right now. And I think what it's demonstrating is that we believe in, the sovereignty of a nation choosing their future. We believe in democracy, et cetera, free and open.
Okay, Admiral, do you see what I'm saying? International rules-based order. What's it to us in Tupelo?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. So what it means is freedom of navigation, right? So think of goods and services flowing unencumbered through wherever they need to go to get to the people of the world. Two-thirds.
Our ability to purchase the products we need for everyday life.
I don't know if it's on the purchase side, but when we talk international rules-based order, it's certainly on the delivery side. So two-thirds of the entire global economy flow through the South China Sea and the Straits of Malacca. And if you were to not have a rule set of orders and there was a country that believed they could meter, monitor, task, tax, or impact that set of prosperity, right, that's what it would mean to the people of America when you talk about the international rules-based order. The ability to fly anywhere that rules allow. The U.S. standing in the region as it applies to being an assured partner in the vicinity. Those are the kind of the stakes and what it means when we talk about the international rules-based order.
The value of the word of U.S. leaders, you're saying?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. Senator Shaheen, please.
Thank you, and thank you both for your service and for being here this morning. India is a key partner. It's a member of the Quad. It's the only member of the Quad that maintains such a close and ongoing relationship with Russia, including continuing to acquire additional weapons from Russia. Are there more steps we should be taking to discourage India from maintaining that relationship with Russia and try and encourage them to adopt more of the positions of other members of the Quad, with Australia, Japan, with us?
Thanks, Senator. So India's been a tremendous partner. The partnership is only growing. It's strengthening. We have similar security concerns. We have people-to-people ties. We have certainly deep relationships with the Indians. They buy our equipment. We're interoperable in the military-to-military space. Their Chief of Defense, General Chauhan, and I have a terrific relationship. So I think what we need to do is keep fostering this. The world's largest democracy with similar security concerns, we have to continue to work together in order to ensure that the United States and India's relationship grows. We certainly support the increased multilateral aspect of it. So the Quad is not a military agreement. It is an economic and diplomatic relationship, but the Quad nations come together often to practice and rehearse, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, thank you. I agree. I think it's very important. And as we look at the growing relationship between China and Russia, it has an ever-increasing role to play. So thank you. Can you speak to how the expanded security agreement between the U.S. and the Philippines enhances our posture and how it can serve as a model for other nations?
Thanks, Senator. It's critically important. So one of 5 mutual defense treaty allies in the region, the Philippines, our history goes back a very long way, as everyone knows. The increased EDCA sites that have been concurred to, and I thank the Secretary for his work there as we've proposed those sites. That expands the areas that we can rehearse and exercise with the Philippines. But the critical nature of the Philippines, its strategic location, and the partnership that we have, those sites are critical. So more than likely in next year's budget, you will see an ask to do planning and design work in those sites. They've just been announced. So there's no money in the '24 budget to start work in those additional 4 sites, but you do see other requests to build up the current sites in the Philippines. And our operations there, our partnership with the Philippines is critical.
And is that helpful as we're looking at other partner nations in the region to be able to show what's happening in the Philippines? Are they looking at that as something that they're willing to consider because they see that agreement?
Thanks, Sarah. I think all the nations in the region are looking at the threat and realizing they need to take additional actions. The Philippines as a model for how we operate together, but it's certainly not alone. We're doing the same thing with the Japanese. General LaCamera is working with the South Koreans. We're working with our Australian counterparts. We're doing the same with our Thailand alliance. So it's a model, and it's expanding, and we're looking at all nations to deliver those same capabilities together with the United States.
Thank you. I really appreciate the leadership that Indo-Pacom has taken on the Women, Peace, and Security Act, and I think it serves us well all around the world. But can you speak to the advantage that gives us over China when we are looking at how we can engage women more fully and the contrast that presents to what China's doing? Certainly, Senator.
So the contrast is clear when you think about Xinjiang and the treatment of Uyghurs and understand that goes on. You know, that's a problem set that China has to face, and one of our asymmetric advantages, right? So our ability to care for all people, no matter what, and the Women, Peace, and Security Initiative that was begun in Indo-Pacom before me and that we continue has been helpful. Matter of fact, I was just in Papua New Guinea a couple months ago with my counterpart, General Goina, and that's where our next seminar is coming up, followed by one in Japan. So it's about people, it's about respect, it's about treating people fairly. It's what we stand for in the United States. We'll continue to do those things.
Thank you very much. Thank you both.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. Senator Fisher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today, and thank you for your service to this country. Admiral, on your unfunded requirements list, you included a requirement for funding to accelerate the development of several munitions, including the SM-6, the Army's PRISM weapon system, and the Maritime Strike Tomahawks. What would those capabilities provide, and why do you assess that it's necessary to make those investments in 2024?
Thank you, Senator. So as we always look at lessons learned, certainly one that came out of the Ukraine conflict was the ability to ensure that our stockpiles were correct with the right number and the right types of weapons and capabilities. So in the Indo-Pacific Command, we have those requirements identified. We can talk specific classified if we need to, but bottom line is the entire joint force is required to help deliver effects to both deter and fight and win. So from the land component, Maritime Strike Tomahawk, PRISM Increment 2, those capabilities to enable the MDTF from the Army, their new formation, the Multi-Domain Task Force, and from the Marine Corps and the Littoral Marine Regiment, Those are the capabilities that those forces need to bring with me or bring with them in the region to do the missions assigned. So that's why I've advocated for those. Right types and right numbers.
Right. Thank you, because it was a lesson learned from Ukraine, the much faster rate of than planned for, especially in expending all those munitions there. So thank you for including those on the requirement list. You also have on the unfunded priority list a requirement for an additional $511 million for Indo-Pacom campaigning. Why is campaigning in the Indo-Pacific particularly valuable, and what types of exercises or activities would this additional funding be used for if Congress would authorize it?
Thanks, Senator. So the delivery of deterrence through the lens of Indo-Pacom sees the initiative approach. Campaigning is one aspect of it. And that means persistent forward forces operating with our allies and partners in the region forward every day. So when we talk about our operations and exercises, we do 120 exercises a year with our allies and partners. But that's not 365 days. So for the days we're not exercising, I am also looking to ensure that our forces are forward, prepared, and operating with our allies and partners every day. That's what those campaigning dollars are requested for. That is to pick up the force and move it forward into the theater in places where they can operate with our allies and partners. And that money is not to do maintenance. It's not to do depot level sustainment. It is for transportation costs to be able to move the force and sustain the force forward.
Which is extremely important, not just for the exercises, but also for future planning, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. With AUKUS, the security partnership that allows us to share significant capabilities with our closest allies, we hear a great deal about Pillar 1 and the sharing of nuclear propulsion technology with Australia, and that is an important part of the agreement. However, through Pillar 2, the AUKUS partnership allows for greater cooperation across multiple lines of effort. What do you assess to be the prime areas of opportunity to increase that coordination and extend partner capabilities and capacities?
Yeah, Senator, our partnership with the Australian is so critically important. Again, a mutual defense treaty ally. The Australians have shared blood and treasure with us in every fight we've been in for over 100 years. So I commend my partner, Angus Campbell, and all of the Australian leadership. They also are concerned about the security environment, which is why AUKUS is so critical for both peace and prosperity, as we share submarine technology and deliver U.S. Virginia-class submarines and follow-on types of submarines. But in Pillar 2, there's also a ton of capabilities, as you highlighted. The most critical that I think we can get at fast, there are some cyber capabilities, there are space-based capabilities, there's some undersea capabilities, and then there's some work in the form of artificial intelligence and machine learning. There's others. Those, I think, have the most promise for near-term delivery of capability.
And the United States is stronger when our allies are stronger as well, correct?
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Fisher. Senator Gillibrand, please.
Thank you. Admiral Aquilino, Indo-Pacom is the first combat command to have a Space Force Regional Command Center. How is U.S. Space Forces Indo-Pacific integrating into Indo-Pacom? And can you discuss how you've built the Guardian skill set into your regional exercises like Cobra Gold and Bali Katan?
Yes, Senator, thank you. I really appreciate General Saltzman's team, along with General Dickinson, to set up the first component at Indo-Pacom. So General Massalier is my component commander, and the criticality of his efforts to synchronize our effects undersea, on the sea, above the sea, in space and cyberspace is something that the U.S. can do better than anybody on the Earth. The space component is critical. Their enabling capabilities, extremely valuable. And working with our allies and partners in this domain is also important. In Cobra Gold, which is our most recent exercise in Thailand, we actually put in place a space component as a part of that exercise. We're doing it in Bala-Katan. It will be included in all of our upcoming exercises wherever and whenever we can. Talisman Sabre as well with the Australians. Northern Edge as a part of our event. So it's now just normal ops.
Great. The House Armed Services Committee earlier this week, you noted that the strategy and approach with regards to the PRC is competition and not containment. Can you expand upon why that difference is important?
I think, for me, Senator, the ability to compete is really a non-adversarial type relationship, which is, I think, what the United States seeks. The PRC believes we are trying to contain them. There is no doubt, despite the President's comments, the Secretary of Defense's comments, General Milley's comments, and my comments, right? We seek peace, not to provoke conflict. So competition is important. There's things we're going to agree on. There's things we're not going to agree on. That's what competition looks like.
Well, relatedly, last month, Secretary Austin testified before this committee that he thought it was important that great powers have the ability to talk to each other and manage crisis. But reports indicate that his outreach was not answered by the PRC during the tensions in February over the high-altitude balloon. Are you engaged with your counterparts in China's eastern and southern military districts? And from your perspective, why would such engagement be important?
Senator, I certainly think it's valuable to have relationships and be able to have conversations, whether it's for positive reasons or in times of concern. So it's been important for me. I have not had contact with my counterparts, either in the Eastern Theater Command or the Southern Theater Commander, although I've had a standing request to have a conversation now since I've been in this position. We have invited our counterparts to the Chiefs of Defense conferences that we do 2 to 3 times a year virtually and once a year in person, and we'll continue to seek their attendance to those important events where we can come together with all of the regional military leaders to have conversations.
I'd be grateful if you do establish that contact, that you update the committee, because this is a priority that we can deconflict.
Yes, Senator.
Similarly, the department has focused on One Health surveillance, meaning an integrated public health approach, considering human and veterinary diseases, food, and environmental monitoring for years, since well before the pandemic. COVID-19 focused us all on the intersection well framed in the One Health concept. Can you address any programs or initiatives within Indo-Pacom based on the One Health concept, and how those are serving to protect the health and security of the American people?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. So we certainly support CDC in this important initiative as it applies to, we don't have any programs. What we do have is exercises. So in 2021, we did an exercise directly focused on this issue. We'll do it again in 23, and we'll remain linked with the interagency, especially in the wake of COVID. The importance, I think, became to light.
Right, and the fact that we do not have any working relationship with China made the work with regard to COVID's beginnings, middles, and end really difficult. So that's why your role is so important in these long-term national security goals. General LaCamera, Kim Jong-un has launched 12 rounds of missile tests since January. Some of these tests happened close in time to our Freedom Shield exercise with South Korea, but several of the tests predated that exercise. Can you fill us in on what your assessment is driving the recent surge in dangerous activity?
His 8th Party Congress in 2021, Senator, he laid out a trajectory. He is doing that. Right now, I think he is reacting to our training. Since President Yoon has come in, we've increased our ability to not just do command post exercises, but field training exercises. The challenge is when we telegraph the timing of it, gives him an opportunity to plan to use that as a reaction to us. But he is on a course that he set in 2021, and he's moving out on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Cotton, please.
Admiral, I want to continue along the line of questioning about Taiwan's capabilities. I know that there's a backlog of weapons transfers to Taiwan that has to be addressed, but not every kind of weapon in the world is backlogged. So while we work on that backlog, I want your professional assessment on whether an appropriation of FMF funds to provide Taiwan with weapons that are not backlogged, weapons such as mines, might be helpful for them and also helpful to increase deterrence in the Western Pacific.
Yes, Senator. So the delivery capability to enable our responsibilities under the Taiwan Relations Act is important, and to get it to the people on Taiwan is critical. And the capabilities we've laid out that we've coordinated and identified inside the department, there are many that could be done very quickly.
And could you just give us kind of a handful of the top priorities of what additional FMF funds could get to Taiwan of weapons that are not backlogged?
I think what I give you is the capability set. I can't tell you which specific ones are
That's
backlogged.
fine.
But if you think about anti-aircraft capability, if you think about anti-ship capability in a variety of forms, whether they be missiles, mines, but those capabilities would be critical.
There's also the possibility of a Taiwan-focused presidential drawdown. Would your answer be the same for that, that also could help surge some of the capabilities of Taiwan that they need to improve deterrence in the Western Pacific, just like FMF funds would?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I thank Congress for taking a look at that, and ultimately for the Presidential Drawdown Authority, not only for the authority to do it, but ultimately to backfill it if possible, is critical.
Okay. You've also expressed concern about the loss of any combat power in the theater. As the ranking member on the Air-Land Power Subcommittee, I've been particularly concerned about the fact that our Air Force is characterized by shrinking inventories and an aging fleet going back 30 years now. I want to be clear, I'm not talking about changing our global force posture. I know there's been a lot of angst, if you will, about moving aircraft around from the Western Pacific and from Germany and Alaska. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about adding more capability to the Air Force as a whole. Given the importance of air power in any kind of conflict scenario in the Western Pacific, would additional F-15EXs and F-35s in the Air Force inventory enhance your efforts to deter conflict?
That certainly would, Senator, especially when you talk about the increased capability and capacity that might come with that. Fifth generation, advanced, and the fourth generation capability that exists in the EX, those capabilities would absolutely help deliver deterrent effects.
Thank you. General, North Korea continues to develop new capabilities and make new threats to the Republic of Korea and to the United States and other friends. They recently tested a solid-fueled intercontinental ballistic missile. How does that change your assessment of their capability, and why would that be an important advance for North Korea over their traditional liquid-fueled missiles?
No, thanks, Senator. It poses some challenges on the indications and warnings. Again, he laid out his plan. He's moving towards it. It's continuing to demonstrate a couple of things. One, he meant what he said, and two, he's continuing to be able to develop this capability, even with sanctions and even with COVID and lockdowns and things like that. He's been able to continue this development.
And why exactly does the introduction of a solid-fueled missile reduce your indications and warnings?
I'd rather move that to a classified setting. So.
Okay. I think sometimes we get kind of accustomed to these provocations from North Korea, and we overlook the fact that they are, in fact, improving their nuclear forces capability, and it's not just the same old, same old.
I can assure you I'm not distracted.
No, I know you're not, but I think some people here and when they see the news in the United States are, and I think it's important that we be mindful that they are making technological progress that is alarming in both the nature of their nuclear forces and also the ranges of their missiles. Thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Aquilino, as we spoke about this morning, just want to get a little bit more detail on the Compass Call electronic warfare mission. You know, there is no doubt that the next conflict that we're involved in will be heavily fought and potentially won in the electromagnetic spectrum. And as our adversaries evolve in their EW capabilities, it's critical that we maintain our competitive edge here by being ready to protect our own assets and also attack our adversaries' capabilities in the electronic warfare spectrum. So the EC-37B, the new compass call capability that I worked on this committee to increase the procurement of, will enhance Blue Force lethality and survivability, and I'm really proud that this capability is going to be hosted in Arizona at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. So, Admiral, what impact would the compass call have in Indo-Pacom if a crisis or conflict emerged?
Thanks, Senator. So it's absolutely a part of our set of capabilities that we believe we would need to employ. The new capability of the compass call is critical, along with all of the other electromagnetic support capabilities that come from all the services. Again, this is going to be a joint service fight. The compass call supports not only the Air Force, but the rest of the joint force, so it's critical.
And I know you're not a EW guy, you know, being a former F-14, you know, pilot who served, by the way, with my brother, I think, aboard the Ike. But can you speak specifically about the EC-37B and what critical capabilities that it can deliver that might not be available on any other platform?
So keep it in the unclassified space. The ability for our force to operate in contested space is important. Our ability to have persistent battle space awareness is important. And then any capabilities to do any disruption actions that we'd like to take are important.
And has it recently been used in any exercises?
I'll have to get back to you on that, Senator.
Okay. And then, you know, finally, in your professional military opinion, how many compass calls do you think that your theater, Indo-Pacom, needs to ensure Blue Force survivability if we were to be in a conflict specifically with China?
Sir, if it's okay, I'll get back to you in a classified setting on that.
And then, General, can you also comment on the necessity for a strong electronic warfare attack capability on the Korean Peninsula?
Yeah, yes, Senator, thank you. I need that, but I also need the ability to train at that level on the Korean Peninsula, which we currently don't have either on the ROC Air Force or U.S. Air Force side. So we've got to go off peninsula to get some of that training for our pilots to be able to operate in the EW threat area.
And then, Admiral, back to you on the Navy's EW capability. How do you currently assess where the United States Navy is specifically with the aircraft carrier battle groups?
Senator, as we talked about, there's a critical importance for that electronic attack and electronic support capability. It's inherent and interwoven into the carrier strike group formation. It is also used to support the rest of the joint force, so those F-18G Growlers are critically important.
It is one area where Ukraine is currently, you know, struggling when, you know, the Russian electronic warfare capability is, you know, outmatching, you know, them at this point. And I think it's indicative of how important electronic warfare is in any modern combat. So thank you, Admiral, and thank you, General.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Rounds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, first of all, let me begin by thanking both of you for your service to our country and your families as well. It is appreciated, and sometimes we don't say it enough. Gentlemen, to both of you, I'd like to begin along the same lines with regard to spectrum issues. There has been a discussion about the separation or the sharing of certain parts of the electromagnetic spectrum in order for our country to continue moving forward in 5G development. But The area in particular that I want to focus on is the area which is the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band. It's especially sensitive because we've already had testimony by naval officials, including Secretary Del Toro, specifically regarding the use of that part of the electromagnetic spectrum with regard to radar. I'd like to continue that line of questioning and provide each of you an opportunity to discuss the importance of the 3.1 to 3.45 portion of the spectrum with regard to protecting our forces, and perhaps a little bit of additional color with regard to how critical that part is with regard to the physics of that area of the spectrum. Admiral Aquilino?
Senator, we certainly operate in that spectrum. So as we look at the potential sharing and how we're going to do that, we certainly don't want to have any place where either our capabilities are impacted by other use, and as always, as good stewards, we don't want to be impactful to any other use. So I think we'd have to look at it very closely and figure out how we could make it work.
Fair to say that the current radar systems that our most advanced destroyers use is using radar systems that operate in that area, correct?
Yes, Senator, there's a variety of joint force capabilities that operate in that spectrum, to include missile defense from at sea, so there's certainly some critical capabilities there.
That include the island of Hawaii?
So the Aegis system on Kauai, in Kauai is certainly the, operates in that spectrum, along with other missile defense capabilities.
Thank you. General?
Senator, I'm going to have to take that for the record. That's above my
No,
expertise.
that's fine. Thank you, gentlemen. I simply think that it's very important that we understand, we have an operational, or we have a committee which is working right now on sharing that information. There are some people that would like to move forward with including a sale of that part of the spectrum, and I think it's just simply not responsible for us to allow that to happen until after the complete report is completed in September, and that's the reason for asking the question. Admiral Aquilino, cyber and space remain critically important domains to U.S. national security. Could you briefly explain how you integrate your operations with Cybercom and Spacecom? And do you believe the FY 2024 budget adequately supports our ability to effectively address the growing cyber and space threats in the Indo-Pacific?
Thanks, Senator. So I have a space component, as we just talked about. I also have a cyber component. As a part of our operations development and planning and campaigning, those teams are plugged directly into the physical domains, the ships, the submarines, the airplanes, the ground forces, and we synchronize all those operations. General Nakasone, General Dickinson, and General Saltzman are great partners. They understand the missions that I've asked. They understand my priorities, and they're taking all actions to support our efforts.
Thank you. We've talked some about the use of landmines and other capabilities in which to shape a battlefield. General LaCamera, can you talk a little bit about the need to be able to appropriately shape battle positioning on land in the Korean Peninsula, and the need to have those battle shaping capabilities?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. I mean, the demilitarized zone is probably one of the most heavily mined areas in the world. And to be able to integrate, to prevent, shape, move, disrupt the enemy's ability to move over land is extremely important to the ground force commander.
Do you continue to have discussions about the deployment or the ability to deploy appropriate, treaty-appropriate capabilities? And we're talking about landmines, basically, but those of a modern era that we can control in terms of when they're available and when they're neutralized?
Yes. That's, as we go through in our exercises, mine clearing and mobility exercises is all part of the field training exercises that we do, not just in the digital world, but on the ground.
Can you do your mission appropriately without access to those types of tools?
I don't believe so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Round. Senator Ernst, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Admiral Aquilino, let's talk a little bit about the Indo-Pacific. It absolutely is the priority theater and site of our pacing threat. Thank you for your defense. If, God forbid, the United States would ever cross swords with China, the defense of our nation really does depend on you, so thank you. I want to talk specifically, Admiral, about the land-based systems. DoD reports that China fields more than 1,250 ground-launched ballistic missiles and ground-launched cruise missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. And how many ground-launched missiles of that range does the United States field?
None that I'm aware of at this time.
You're right, 0. And of the programs under development, how many exceed 3,000 kilometers, which would be the outer ranges of your area of responsibility?
Same.
0. You are right, Admiral. Thank you. And Admiral, what military advantages would this gap provide China with in any future conflict?
Well, Senator, certainly is in their strategy and their design is to keep us out of the theater. So our ability to operate in that space is critical, as I discussed.
Mm-hmm. And Admiral, would you agree that ground-launched theater range strike systems could buy down some of that risk in your AOR?
So, Senator, as we said, the entire joint force would be required both to deter and to fight and win if need be. The ability for the land component to deliver those weapons, and again, those are articulated in my 1254 report as requirements that I've identified that we need. It certainly expands our ability to provide multiple dilemmas, and they're directly involved in our approach.
Multiple dilemmas is a good thing. And Admiral, would you further agree that DoD should study options for deploying those ground-launched theater range strike missiles in your AOR?
So I don't know about the study. I can tell you we're doing it right now, Senator. So our exercises, our operations as a part of the multi-domain task force and the Marine Littoral Regiment, the forces are preparing when that capability is delivered.
Very good. Thanks. And I'm glad to be leading an effort to build the Rings of Fire in Indo-Pacom along with Senators Manchin and Congressman Gallagher in the House. We feel that that's important for your capabilities. Admiral, you spoke a little bit with Senator Wicker about some of the Ukraine trade-offs, and I want to drill down a little bit on that and be a little more specific. So let's talk about Ukraine as it applies to Taiwan. Has our support to Ukraine depleted any munitions that are needed for Taiwan?
Not at this time, Senator.
So a little different fight, a little different capabilities that are needed. So just to be very, very clear, the fight that's ongoing between the Ukrainians and the Russians, the munitions that we are providing to Ukraine at this time are not degrading capabilities that are necessary for the fight that might occur in Taiwan.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a lot of discussion about this ongoing in the Senate and in the House. There are those that say we cannot complete both missions. We shouldn't be helping in Ukraine. I agree with you, Admiral Aquilino. I agree with you, General LaCamera, that we must maintain our assistance to Ukraine. It will not, at this point, degrade what we are doing as we look towards the east. So I want to thank you both for making that very clear today, and I do hope that other members of Congress understand this need. And plainly put, it is for the defense of our nation and our global standing that we ensure success with the Ukrainians, but we also cannot take our eye off the ball when it comes to any fight that might occur, whether it's North Korea whether it's China. So thank you, gentlemen, very much for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. Senator Rosen, please.
Well, thank you, Chairman Reed. Really appreciate you holding this hearing. Thank you both for your service to our nation, for being here today, and I want to associate myself with my colleague, Senator Ernst, on how we have to do all of it, and in all of our standing, our safety, and around the world matters, and appreciate your service there. And so we're going to go right into it, Admiral Aquilino, and talk about maintaining our technological edge, because we're all talking about China. They're leveraging state funding to accelerate their own military modernization efforts across key domains. They're rapidly advancing in areas like AI, robotics, cyber, and of course, hypersonics. Domestically, global competition for a skilled workforce, declining investment in R&Ds, DoD's contracting challenges, and the STEM workforce gap, they're unfortunately all eroding, and they're hurting our technological edge over China. And so it's why I'm working to establish a public-private partnership program to accelerate the scaling, production, and acquisition of innovative defense technologies by creating incentives for investment right here in American small businesses working in this space. We have to be nimble. So, Admiral Aquilino, how might a public-private partnership that spurs private sector investment in advanced defense capabilities, how do you think that could help us maintain our technological edge with China?
Thanks, Senator. So as I articulated in my testimony, right, the ability for the United States to go faster to deliver deterrent effects is critical. The innovation that exists in the United States is second to none anywhere on the globe. So any actions that would deliver outcomes in support of our deterrence effect would always be welcome.
Thank you. I think using the imagination and innovation to partner is always a good thing. And another place that we really have to do that is our cybersecurity and our cybersecurity cooperation, in particular with Taiwan, because we're acutely aware of the threat that China poses in the cyber domain. China's used Taiwan as a testing ground for its cyber capabilities, and its recent cyber attacks have forced Taiwan to harden their defenses. So it's why today I'm introducing with Senator Rounds, he's not here right now, but Senator Rounds and Congressman Gallagher bipartisan legislation to expand military cybersecurity cooperation with Taiwan. So again, Admiral Aquilino, how do you assess Chinese cyber threats to Taiwan, and how is Indo-Pacom working to expand military to military cybersecurity cooperation with Taiwan to strengthen the deterrence and raise the cost of escalation for Beijing?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. Again, in combination with my partner, General Nakasone from Cybercom, we always look to strengthen allies, partners, and friends networks so that they're secure and that they can have a confidence that the things that they're putting out in their own networks are not being read or impacted by other nations, and we do that across the theater. So we certainly have actions undergoing to ensure that. As a part of our approach in Indo-Pacom, and it's a part of my unfunded list, is something called the Mission Partner Environment. So to talk to those allies and partners right now, I have 13 separate networks. That's costly, they're at risk, and what we are attempting to deliver is a single pane of glass that allows us to communicate securely in a cyber-safe way with all of our partners across the region, no matter who, at the level at which we can share. So we're going to demonstrate that, we've demonstrated already with one of our partners, and we'll expand that as our ability to scope and scale it. But it's certainly, it's the only way we'll be able to operate with those allies and partners in a way that gives us confidence.
No, I agree with you on the single point of entry, because 13 separate networks leaves a lot of points of vulnerability and too much to manage. In the few seconds I have left, I want to talk about your state partnership program in Nevada. We have the Nevada National Guard. We have our partnerships with Fiji, Tonga, and most recently Samoa to support Indo-Pacom's mission. I'm going to go pretty fast here. In the South Pacific, we help you with maritime security and humanitarian assistance goals. And so, given their strategic locations, the small island nations, particularly again vulnerable from threats to China. So, how can our state partnership program, how can it be leveraged to bolster the cybersecurity programs in the Indo-Pacific, where my Nevada National Guard is?
We view those relationships through the National Guard, and General Hokanson is also a great partner in support of that. As a matter of fact, we just signed a recent one. I was at the signing in one of the Pacific Islands not long ago. So expanding that, building those relationships, help build trust, and all of that leads towards increased interoperability and capability in cyber and all the other domains.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Senator Budd, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And General Admiral, thank you both for being here. Admiral, in very real terms, what is the strategic significance of the Taiwan Strait? And more broadly, why should we be maintaining a free and open, why is maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific matter to Americans?
Thanks, Senator. So certainly, Taiwan itself is in a strategic location as it applies to the transfer of 2/3 of the global commerce around the world. It matters as it applies to the international rules-based order. In other words, if a single nation is allowed to describe what will be allowed to sail, fly anywhere that they choose, that's not what the like-minded nations of the world have signed on to, right? There's a coercive potential, there's increased cost potential, there's insurance hike potential. I mean, the second, third, and fourth order effects are enormous. So all of those things are what matter to the global nations.
Thank you for that. You know, when I think about this, I think about how important it is to work with and empower our allies and our partners to ensure that no one nation can dominate such an important region militarily. And sticking with you, Admiral, I've got a few questions I'd like to ask about our foreign military sales process. And I've asked questions of other geographic combatant commanders as well. So I'd appreciate, on the first part, just a simple yes or no, and then at the end, I'll give you some chance to expand, if you will. So is the current FMS process, is it fast and flexible enough to meet our foreign partner security needs in your AOR? And that's the yes or no. Is it fast and flexible enough to meet?
I'd like it to go faster.
So that's a no, I take it. Thanks. Does the transfer of U.S. defense articles build our partners' capacity to provide for their own defense?
It does.
And is the United States still the security partner of choice in your AOR?
For almost all of the nations, yes, sir.
Thank you. Is the United States at risk of losing that security partner of choice status to China?
I think it's an area of competition that we have to ensure that we execute our roles and make sure that we, in alignment with all those like-minded nations, are moving towards a region that supports the benefit of all those nations.
Is China increasing arms exports to any countries in your area of responsibility?
They are.
So could you explain how foreign military sales challenges are impacting strategic competition with China in the Pacific?
So the FMS program for the United States, Senator, helps us ensure that we're interoperable with like-minded nations. We are certainly not going to plug in any of the PRC capabilities into our systems. It builds confidence. We have the best capabilities on the globe. Also a lesson learned from Ukraine. So continuing to share, operate, coordinate, and exercise with those partners increases their ability to defend themselves, and it increases our partnerships.
Thank you. So, Admiral, how comfortable are you with the Defense Industrial Base ability to produce the munitions necessary to meet your requirements?
So I'm extremely impressed with all of the Defense Industrial Base. I'd like them to go faster.
Thank you very much. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Budd. Senator Hirono, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Aquilino and General LaCamera, thank you very much for your service and for being here. And Admiral, always good to see you. So when we met recently, Admiral Aquilino, you made it very clear that you are the responsible person for missile defense of Hawaii. In this year's budget request, there is money for a dual-use radar, and this is a good step forward, but certainly will not be the last. As the supported commander for the mission, do you believe the services and your fellow combatant commanders are providing you the capabilities you need for the defense of Hawaii now and into the future?
Aloha, Senator. Thank you. I am absolutely responsible for the defense of Hawaii. I am supported by a variety of great partners. They understand their roles. They understand the stakes. I certainly have an added concern since I live there. But bottom line is Hawaii is defended, and we will continue to defend it. The additional capabilities we've asked for will enhance that defense.
Thank you. The compacts of free association between the U.S. and the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, and Palau are currently up for renewal, and you and I discussed the importance of the compacts when we met. And they are vital to our ability to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. The COFA agreements include support for COFA citizens who can come to our country without visas, a very special category of lawfully present people in our country. So until a policy change in the late 1990s, these COFA citizens had access to federal benefits. While the access to COFA benefits is not directly within your jurisdiction, effective compacts are critical to our ability to operate in your AOR. Admiral, do you agree that strong compact agreements, including honoring our commitments to the people of the compact states and nations, are particularly those who choose to live in the U.S., is critical to our ongoing operations in the Indo-Pacific?
Thanks, Senator. So the compact agreements are absolutely critical to the defense of the United States. Those are partner nations that we have deep history ties with. As a matter of fact, the compact states per capita send more service members to the United States military than anywhere else. So they have proven to be patriots, and they're tremendous friends. So we defend them like they're our hometown, and we will continue to do that. So that's critically important. Now, as you articulated, not in my lane, but the United States takes care of people. Our ability to ensure the broad spectrum of human rights and taking care of people is a part of our DNA, so I certainly support that.
Thank you very much, because as a totality of the commitments that we have to our compact nations, that the DOD, which very much, of course, in our country, that very much benefits from these compacts, that, again, while it may not be in your lane as to their ability to access federal benefits, that is a very important component of our partnership and our close relations with our compact nations. Admiral Aquilino, across your theater, facilities in Hawaii, Guam, Japan, and Korea are in a state of disrepair, impacting our readiness and ability to mobilize forces quickly. Failing pipes, moldy barracks, intermittent blackouts, and frankly, lackluster repair facilities run counter to our military and community needs. How does the deferred maintenance of our infrastructure, really resulting in massive facility failures such as at Red Hill, how does that impact your ability to conduct deterrence in your AOR?
Thanks, Senator. So as you know, the infrastructure and support and funding for the service infrastructure comes through service budgets. But when we took a look at the most recent, specifically the water main break on Hawaii, I took a look through the lens of readiness on we ought to be able to identify where we're concerned. And not just in Hawaii. We did it in Korea, we did it in Japan and the other places throughout the theater for me to be able to understand our readiness. So we undertook a study My team is reviewing what that looks like, and Senator, when we complete that study, I'll be glad to come back and brief you. I have advocated for those investments into the infrastructure to deliver the readiness we need for the force. But again, I owe you an answer on that.
I think it's really important because as we establish priorities for the DoD and for all of the services, that the deferred maintenance is becoming ever larger, and it results in the kind of catastrophes that cost billions of dollars. So I appreciate your leadership on this, and we, as far as I'm concerned, we need to have a much better plan on how we're going to keep up with maintenance of all of our facilities across our country as well as indeed the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Reynolds. Senator Scott, please.
Sure. Thanks, Chairman. General LaCamera, thanks for hosting me last Independence Day, and got to meet a lot of your troops. And a lot of them were from Florida, so thanks for doing that. If North Korea invades and it was able to take over South Korea, would it have any impact on the American family?
Yes, I believe it would. I mean,
What would happen? What would be? So if you were going to say, hey, this is why we should have troops in South Korea, why we should make sure that South Korea remains as an independent country, what would you tell the American public?
I would tell it's an important piece of ground. It puts us on the Asian continent. It's a demonstration of our ironclad commitment to the region and peace and stability in the region. I think South Korean's economy is important to our economy, and that regional stability. And I believe that a challenge to that would have impacts on the United States.
Are there any products or services that would be important that we'd be American citizen would be without? Would it matter to the average person that wants to go buy something?
No, I believe in capitalism and competition. I'm sure they can find another product elsewhere. I think it's a more of an intangible than it is a tangible.
Admiral, what would you say about the same? Would you say the same thing about Taiwan? How would that, if China invaded and they were able to win and took over Taiwan, would it have any impact on American families?
Yeah, Senator, first of all, the integration of the global economic network is critical, and there would be multiple touches. On the Taiwan piece, specifically, the high-end semiconductors is critical to many things we use. So there would be a drastic impact if we were not able to replace it in some other way. There's no doubt about that.
And do you have any idea what percentage of high-end chips are made in Taiwan, and how much of an impact that would have on cars, any electronics we do?
Almost all of them, and I don't know what that percentage of impact would be, but it's be broad.
For both of you, for Korea and for Taiwan, are the governments of South Korea and Taiwan, are they doing everything they can to defend themselves? Because it's not the easiest thing in the world to one, get to Taiwan, or two, to have the resources to be able to defend South Korea. So for each of you, could you just tell me how important it is, and do we have the right resources? Are they doing the right things? I mean, as far as I can tell, Taiwan, where they have 8-month conscription, they haven't armed their citizens. It seems to me that would be some of the simplest things to do. Have a stronger military, arm their citizens. Same with South Korea.
Yeah, Senator, so in the wake of the Ukraine invasion by Russia, I think if you look at that, and if you look at a variety of other actions that have gone on in the region, there's a real concern, to include on the island of Taiwan. If you look at Hong Kong, all right, who's next? And if you look at Ukraine and the linkage between Russia and China, there's a real concern. So I have certainly been encouraged by that recent actions for conscription and other things that have been taken. I think there's a real seriousness now.
Is that true for South Korea?
It's a little bit complicated because right now we have a bilaterally agreed upon Afghan transition program to get them to where they would take over one of my commands, Combined Forces Command. They're on the right trajectory to do that. The agreement is that it'll be standards-based and not time-based. And so we're moving in that direction to make sure that that happens.
Sure. So Senator Mudd brought up, and I think some others have brought up, our military industrial complex ability to provide weapons. We're way behind, we know, in Taiwan. What do you think the federal government ought to be doing to make sure that our defense contractors, move faster? Because it'll make your lives easy, especially in Taiwan, if they had what is it, $19 billion worth of arms that they've ordered that we haven't provided to them.
Yeah, Senator, certainly the president's budget, as was submitted, has got a component of a multi-year on the munitions piece, which would be very helpful. I think sending that consistent demand signal is what industry needs. That said, as the most innovative nation on the world, I would hope that the industrial base could take that combined with other actions and move faster.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Duckworth, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, gentlemen. I've been emphasizing the importance of our partners in Southeast Asia in particular, with every chief and combatant commander that has come before this committee today. I think we can do much more to bolster these key relationships to support the entire Indo-Pacific region. And there are some nations that we have not managed those relationships in the last few decades in the way that we have in the past. In August, I plan on taking several of my colleagues to the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand in particular, where we'll focus especially on this issue, the many important opportunities that our nations have to partner together. Admiral Aquilino, in your testimony, you highlighted Indo-Pacom's enhanced exercises with 14 partner nations like Indonesia's Super Garuda Shield. But beyond these, Cobra Gold, Garuda Shield, once a year, once every other year exercises, in what other ways does your command plan to deepen cooperation with our allies and partners in Southeast Asia in particular, including those nations that maybe we've not dealt with on a regular basis like Vietnam or Cambodia and some of the other nations?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. So the exercises certainly are a critical component, as you know. My partner, General Centino, in the Philippines, as a matter of fact, I'm flying to the Philippines on Wednesday to go to an event with him and our Japanese counterpart. We have agreed to, across the region, the chiefs of defense and myself, to work towards more mini and multilateral sets of engagements, whether they be meetings, tabletops, exercises, or operations for more consistent and more direct ability to operate, be interoperable, and to execute our mission sets, all for the defense of the region and to keep it safe. So we are doing a ton. There's almost no events we do unilateral anymore. Everything is done with allies and partners. In Thailand, General Sherman-Pon is also a good friend and partner. I went to Cobra Gold kickoff. We spent some time together. We laid out what else we could do. And again, we continue to look for those opportunities. We're always prepared and planning for any HADR support that might be needed, right? That's us taking care of humanity should it happen to any of those partners. So we're plugged in across the board, and I only see it getting more robust and more effective.
Yeah, I think also there's intelligence sharing that is important. I know the Singaporeans kind of had a cell there that helps with limited intelligence sharing. There's so much that you can do. My colleague, Senator Rosen, talked a little bit about cyber. I informed her that in 2021, we actually passed legislation that authorized a pilot program that enhances cybersecurity partnerships with our forces, with those of Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia. I'm now planning on introducing legislation to expand this important program to include Malaysia and the Philippines in this year's NDAA. Admiral Aquilino, can you comment on the value of direct engagement with our overseas partners to help build their cyber skills? You sort of touched on this a little bit, but I think it is really critically important beyond just speaking directly with us, but also with sharing with each other within the region.
Yeah, thanks, Senator. Certainly, our ability to share information and coordinate, cooperate is absolutely dependent on the cybersecurity of those systems. Otherwise, it's just getting to places where it shouldn't go. You mentioned the CTIF, or the Counterterrorism Information Force in Singapore, right? It's also critical that that sharing gets directly into those facilities to prevent any violent extremism, multilateral, multi-nations to deliver those effects. So Like I said, General Nakasone has taken great strengths to ensure those neighborhoods have the cybersecurity they need. Our investment in the mission partner environment contributes directly to that through this zero trust mindset to ensure we can do it.
Thank you. And General LaCamera, I'm really interested also in U.S.-Korea cyber security partnerships, and you mentioned this in your testimony. Can you expand on that a little bit here?
We're also working with General Nakasone and his folks, and we're also working with the South Koreans. We have our own mission partner environment networks for us to be able to communicate. It's not only important when dealing with the South Korean military, but also in the United Nations Command, the sending states, and making sure that we can, coordinate with those countries.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Duckworth. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you. I think the country needs to know what an excellent job both of you two are doing in your respective theaters, so I want you to hear that from this committee. I think both of you are doing exceptional work for our country. I want to, last year in the NDAA, this committee, by the way, unanimously put in a provision for a floor of 31 amphib ships, 10 big deck amphibs. The Commandant 2 days ago testified just how important that was for force projection, crisis response all over the world for the Marine Corps and the Navy. How important is a robust complement of amphibs for your theater, both of you?
So, Senator, thanks. The amphibious ready group, as it applies with 3-ship ARGs, is certainly important to our ability to deter and as well as our ability to fight and win. And I've articulated the requirements as it exists from Indo-Pacom into the CNO as a part of his development approach. Now, he owns the whole globe, so right now our requirements are met.
Okay.
And we have advocated to ensure that those requirements are not divested or that they somehow reduce.
General, amphibs, force projection, crisis response, MUARGs.
Yes, thanks, Senator. We live on a peninsula. Having that capability available allows me to give multiple options or multiple dilemmas to any adversary who would try and disrupt peace and stability in the region.
Admiral, we've talked about different kind of deterrence factors with regard to the CCP's decision whether or not to invade Taiwan. Of course, there's the ability, which has already been talked about here, for Taiwan to defend itself, which is in the Taiwan Relations Act. The ability for us, if need be, called upon by the President to help in that regard with our allies. But there's also this, what I call a third level of deterrence, which is economic, financial, energy, to put forward a very comprehensive suite of sanctions with us and our allies to say to Xi Jinping and others, hey, if you actually undertake a violent military invasion of Taiwan, here's the massive sanctions that are going to crush your economy. When you think about all instruments of American power, the way the Chinese do, how important do you think that third level of deterrence could be? Because we all want deterrence. No one wants a war in the Taiwan Strait. But we all also know if it's going to be started, it'll be started by the Chinese. How important is that to look at from the level of deterrence as well? Non-military factors.
Yes, Senator, again, so the military lens is certainly my lane as it applies to this, but as I look at the Chinese approach for an all forms of national power assault on the international rules-based order, I think it's critical that the United States, and it's also a part of this integrated deterrence strategy the Secretary has tasked us, so that all forms of national power have to come together, and the economic lever is a pretty big one, so I concur.
Admiral, you and I went to Northern Edge 2 years ago. Impressive. There was a carrier strike group there, a couple hundred aircraft doing knife fighting in Jay Park. Really great training for the whole joint force. Can you talk a little bit about how important you think Northern Edge is in Alaska for an exercise that brings together all of our services, but also our allies and what we can demonstrate up there in the great state of Alaska?
Yes, Senator. So Northern Edge, as a matter of fact, it's going to happen here again this year in the not-too-distant future. Certainly important for us to be able to operate in places that we're comfortable operating. We can train to high-end tactics and capabilities. That said, all of our operations or exercises are important across the globe. Northern Edge is usually one of our largest.
General, I was actually out, left the hearing here for a few hours. I greeted a group of, I greeted an honor flight from Alaska. They just arrived, World War II vet, Korean War vet, Vietnam vets. I love doing this. I never miss when the honor flights come in. We were at the Korean War Memorial. I want to publicly, and I've done it a few times, you and I have talked about, do a shout out to the Korean government and the Korean people who just spent over $20 million adding a very important element to the Korean War Memorial, which is the Wall of Honor. All the U.S. and Korean killed in action. I encourage all Americans to go look at that. I want to thank again the Korean government, Korean people, because they paid for that. They paid for that. It's pretty special. How is it going with the new government? I had the opportunity to meet with the new president recently in terms of their commitment to not only defense, but one thing that I've seen that looks very promising is a new focus on U.S., Korea, Japan relations, training. The trilateral aspect of our defense in Northeast Asia is really important. How do you see that going? And I want to compliment the new government. They seem to be really putting their shoulder into that, and I think it helps for our deterrence and defense in the region. What's your view on that?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. In the last year, we've been able to increase our combat readiness and focus, not just in command post exercises, but at the addition of field training exercises. And we've been able to bring in 2 carrier strike groups. We've been able to do multiple ballistic missile defense exercises. We talked about the other exercises that the Admiral does inside of the theater that we've been able to participate in. So President Yoon has really been focusing on combat readiness. And as you discussed with the trilateral piece, the threat is real to the region. KJU, when he fires his missiles, he sends messages to not only South Korea, but to Japan and the United States on the capabilities. And I think the President has shown tremendous leadership in the region to move forward to secure not just the Korean people, but the American people.
So the trilateral relationship is deepening and getting better from your perspective?
It is, yes, sir.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for your service. Admiral, I wanted to ask, I know there's been some discussion, there's $19 billion worth of weapon systems that the Taiwanese have ordered that they haven't gotten. I think you and I share the same belief that we need to have a greater sense of urgency with this as they face a potential invasion from communist China. What other weapons capabilities do you think that aren't going to take that long are really important for the Taiwanese to have to defend themselves that could get there in shorter order?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. So again, without going into some specific systems, but again, anti-air capability, anti-ship capability, delivered in a variety of means, whether it's missiles, mines, or other things. I think there's some of those that, with some innovative work could be delivered faster.
Okay. Admiral, a few days ago, the Chinese ambassador to the Philippines made some significant threats against Taiwan and the safety of 150,000 Filipinos living in Taiwan. This kind of egregious comment is exactly why many countries in the Indo-Pacific are deepening defense cooperation with the United States, as you're aware. In addition, China continues to conduct provocative operations in the South China Sea, harassing Filipino vessels with lasers and sailing Chinese warships near Filipino holdings in the South China Sea. There's been a commitment, my understanding, to accelerating capability development of the Filipino armed forces during the recent 2+2 meeting. to include helping Manila acquire priority defense systems and platforms. Admiral, in your view, what are the next steps we should take with the Philippines?
So in support of our mutual defense treaty, we are providing a variety of capabilities and training and actions with the Philippines. I think the posture initiatives are critical. So for the United States to be successful in executing our responsibilities for the defense of the Philippines, those posture initiatives, the new EDCA sites, and delivering that capability and infrastructure is critical. And then we can always continue our operation together. Exercise Bala-Catan is going on. It's the largest event in the region for the land component. We've also synchronized at sea. In this particular exercise, it's led by the Marine Corps, but it's integral with the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force as a part of Bala-Catan. So those continued demonstrations and interoperability is the next piece we can do.
I think it's just such a key and strategic alliance for us, the Philippines. Would you support, you mentioned infrastructure, would you support a permanent base on the Philippines?
I think that decision, Senator, would be certainly critical for the Philippines. I don't think the Philippines are looking for permanent U.S. bases. That's their sovereign territory.
Sure.
I think what we'd like to be able to do is operate with them in places that they would allow us to go at this point in time.
Okay. Admiral and General, Missouri, as you both know, proudly hosts the entire operational fleet of the B-2 Spirit bombers. Could you both discuss, in general terms, the significance of the air leg of the nuclear triad to your deterrence missions?
Yes, sir. Certainly, the foundational aspect of our strategic nuclear deterrence lies in the triad. So the B-2s, the SSBN, and the ICBM force. That modernized force is critical to ensure that our conventional deterrent is foundationally based. So for the China portion and the rest of the Indo-Pacific region, it's absolutely critical. And we demonstrate it aligned with our STRATCOM partner fairly frequently, and General LaCamera can talk to that.
And thanks, Senator. I mean, it poses multiple dilemmas. We get questioned about our ability on extended deterrence, and I think it just another demonstration of the tremendous capability that we bring to any fight worldwide.
And what has been the reaction from our friends and adversaries? What have you witnessed to their reaction to that capability?
For us, on the ally side, it's, again, you know, we're looking at this fight from a joint, combined, interagency, multi-domain, and this is just another arrow in our quiver that we continue to demonstrate. With the testing that KJU has been doing and the support that I get from Admiral Aquilino and pushing assets, again, it's just allowing us to build combat readiness, which we haven't been able to do.
Yeah, I think from the rest of the region, Senator, it's also important for them. The Australians have allowed us to do 2 B-2 bomber detachments out of Amberley. So that shows to me that the capability is important for them, as well as the rest of the region. And we operate whenever possible to demonstrating that bomber capability in the theater.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Smith. And gentlemen, thank you. I have one additional question. We are currently at an impasse in confirming general officers, including, I believe, the 7th Fleet Commander. And so, Admiral Aquilino, what impact does this have on your readiness and the impact also on the officers involved in terms of their both family situation and also their opportunities outside the service?
Yeah, Senator, so thanks for that. Operationally, I'm going to have no impact because the 7th Fleet Commander is not going anywhere until the proper replacement is in place. So I think the real impact you articulated, right, it's the personal advancement, it's the personal development, it's the family understanding and predictability. Those are the places. So will it hinder our ability to continue to maintain the right people in the right jobs to be able to then potentially advance and take the next right job? Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, it seems a situation where for the next several months you could get by, but at that point, people who are next in line to step up will consider other options outside the service. And in fact, we've seen this situation in the Navy because of other situations. Tailhook froze an entire cohort of officers, other incidents in the Navy, and as a result, valuable individuals just couldn't be promoted, had to retire. And if this persists, this will have a serious detriment on readiness eventually. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right, Senator, and or Chairman. And Glenn Defense Marine is the other example I would think you were, I think, inferring to. So we did have impact to really quality people in a lot of cases.
General LaCamera, any other comments in this regard?
No, I agree with Admiral Aquilino. I mean, the general officers that I have, I'm not giving them up but again, it does stagnate the next set of, general officers or flag officers that are on current promotions lists that are not confirmed. So it does, the second and third order long-term effects, there'll be impacts, and then when do people decide to leave, and you might lose quality. So I think there's a potential long-term.
No, I do too, and I hope that we can move quickly and return to what regular order and the custom, which is that individuals who serve the nation for 30 years or more have been selected based on their merit as military officers, not any other reason, by panels of other military officers, can be confirmed routinely by the Senate unless there's some particular specific issue with an individual candidate. And that's my hope. So thank you all, gentlemen, for your testimony today.